Good day folks, Sean here from Air Photography. So GoPro recently launched a brand new camera, the GoPro Hero 11 Black. And every year when they release a new camera, I like to create a beginner's guide to help those who are brand new get up and running and familiarized with their new camera. GoPros are not only great for action sports, but they're great for days around the pool, family vacations, travel, and even vlogging. And that's just due to their durability and being waterproof right out of the box. In this beginner's guide, we're going to start right at the very beginning, and it's really geared for those who have never used a GoPro before. We're going to talk about things such as the equipment, take a look around the camera. We're going to talk about how to mount it, what type of memory to use, how to charge it, getting the firmware updated, and many other useful bits that you may need to know as a new user. Along the way, we'll also talk about some tips to help you get the most out of your new camera. Now, these beginner guides can get a little bit long, so I highly recommend bookmarking it. That way you can always come back and reference it later. At the end of the video, I'm also going to go over a few essential accessories that I think every new GoPro owner should consider. So with all that said, let's just jump right in and get started. So we're going to start by taking a look at everything that comes inside the package. Now, I've already had mine open, so some of the things are going to look a little bit different. But if there's anything that you need to know, I will explain it along the way. We'll go ahead here and we'll pull out the camera. Now, what you're going to notice right away when you first open it, there's this card laying right at the top, and it tells us that we must update the firmware before we can use it. This is something new that GoPro has done the last 2 generations. So it's very important to make sure when you purchase it, don't take it right on vacation with you because you do need Wi-Fi in order to use it for the first time. And of course, we'll get into that and I'll show you how to do that. In the top of the case here, we do have some literature. We have this quick start guide. It's very basic. It doesn't really go into much detail, and that's why I tend to create these beginner's guides, because it can be a little confusing for new users. On the back of that, we do actually have some stickers for those who like that kind of thing. We have some tips here for using your GoPro in cold weather, and some other information. Now, as for hardware that comes inside the box, what we have here is a USB-C charging cable. You can also use this cable to connect it to a computer. We have one thumb screw. We have a curved buckle mount receiver. This is for connecting to things like helmets, anything with a curved surface. On their website, they also sell a flat version, so if you do need to put a sticky mount on a flat surface, but you do have to purchase those separately. And we're going to talk a little bit more about mounting here coming up. We have one battery. Now this is their newer Enduro battery, so it does perform better in extreme weather conditions. And we also have a buckle mount. Again, we'll take a look at that here coming up. And then finally, we have the camera. Now yours is going to be covered with a series of stickers. It's going to have some protective wrapping around it, so you will have to go ahead and remove all that. On the back of the GoPro, again, you're going to have another sticker on the screen, and it's going to warn you that you do need to update the firmware before you can use it for the first time. And of course, here we have a nice case that they include. Some people like to leave the cardboard in just for storing their GoPro. Other people take it out, discard it, and they just put their equipment inside. You do have to be careful though. If you just keep everything rattling around inside there, some of these sharp objects could end up scratching the screen. So let's go ahead here and we'll take a look at the camera. I'll show you all the buttons and features. Of course, first of all, we have a front-facing screen. This is basically used to frame and line up your shots when you're filming yourself. This is just for display only. It is not a touch screen. Right above that, we have a tiny little LED light, and that will signify a few different things. It'll turn red when you're recording, but it will also turn red when you're charging. Beside that, we have our lens, and over top of it, we have a lens protector. This lens protector can actually come off. Put a little pressure and pull away from the GoPro. You can see there we can twist it right off. And that's important for a couple different reasons. First of all, if you ever damage it, you crack it or scratch it, you can order replacements on the GoPro website, but there are some accessories that require this to be removed, such as ND filters or the Max Lens mod. If we take a look at the side of the camera here, we have a power button. When the camera is powered on, this also becomes a mode button that can cycle through some of the various modes. Below that, this is a question I do get asked quite a bit. Some people ask what's under this door. It's very important to note that this is not a door and it's not meant to be open. Underneath there is actually a microphone. And it's designed like this because it supposedly helps water drain out quicker if you're using the camera underwater. That allows you to start getting good audio right away once you're above the surface. So don't try and pry that open because you will break it. On the back here, this is our main touchscreen. This is how we're going to get a preview of what we're filming, but it also allows us to go in and change settings. At the top right hand side here, we have another LED light. Again, it will turn red when you're recording and when you're charging batteries. On the other side here, we have a door, and underneath that is a compartment for our battery, memory card, and there's also a USB-C port. To open the door, you just pull down on that tab at the bottom, and then you can just open it easily. Now if you happen to pull the door off while you're opening it, not to worry, it's actually designed to come off. Again, some accessories actually require you to pull the door off. If we take a look inside there, you can see we have the big opening for our battery. We have a USB-C port for charging up the GoPro, but we can also use that to connect the GoPro to a computer. And right above the battery bay, it may be a little bit hard to see, but there is a memory card slot. And we're going to take a look at that in a minute, how to put memory in it. To replace the door, you just line up the grooves at the top of the door with that bar at the top, and it just clicks in. Now when you close the door, make sure you don't see any red. If I pull it down, you can see there's some red under there. You want to make sure there's no red showing, and that will ensure that it's sealed properly, especially if you take this in water. As mentioned, the GoPro is waterproof just like this down to 33 feet. But you always have to make sure that that door is closed. Now if you do take your GoPro in salt water, it is recommended that you rinse it off with fresh water when you're done to get rid of any salt residue. And it's a good idea not to open the door compartment until the GoPro is completely dry. At the bottom of the GoPro here, you can see we have some folding finger mounts. They just fold out. And that's how we're going to connect it to various mounts. These finger mounts at the bottom can be replaced if you damage them. There's 4 screws on either side, and GoPro does sell replacements on their website. When you're not needing them, they just fold back in. And lastly, here at the top of the GoPro, we have our shutter button. That's how we're going to record video and take photos. To power on the GoPro, we're just going to do a quick press on the power/mode button. You can hear it beep, and it goes ahead and powers on. To power it off, we have to do a press and hold. Again, you'll hear it beep, and it will go ahead and power off. Now in this next section here, we're going to talk about mounting techniques, because there's 2 different types of mounting connectors. There's accessories that just have finger mounts on them, but then there's other accessories that have a buckle receiver, which is this part that came in the package. A lot of times, however, when you purchase an accessory that requires a buckle mount, they'll also include one in the box. So those are the basic 2 types of mounts that you're going to run into when it comes to GoPro accessories. To mount to this type of accessory, you're just going to unfold the finger mounts from the bottom of the GoPro and just line it up in those slots. For the most part, you just want to make sure that that opening, the holes all line up. And then you're going to attach a thumb screw and tighten it up. Now these mounts are fairly durable, and it actually allows you to put a lot of torque on there when tightening. And that prevents the camera from tilting back and forth when you don't want it to. However, if you do want to be able to change the angle of your camera easily, just don't put as much pressure on that thumb screw, and then you can angle it as you go depending on what is required. And again, you may run into some accessories that require a buckle mount. You can use the one that came in the box with your GoPro, or the one that comes with the accessory. The way these work, there's a rubber flap on the buckle mount. You just have to pull it up, and then slide it down into the mount until you hear a click. You then push that rubber piece in. That rubber piece basically locks these fingers, so you can't accidentally undo it. Once we have the buckle mount attached, again, we can just add our camera using the finger mounts. Add our thumb screw, and as you can see there, it's now connected. Now the reasoning why some mounts use these buckle mounts, it allows for quick transfer from one accessory to the other. Instead of messing around with thumb screws, you can just undo the buckle mount, and then go ahead and place that in another accessory. So let's go ahead here, we'll talk about batteries and charging. With the Hero 11 Black, you're going to get the Enduro battery, and you know you always have an Enduro battery when it has a white top and a white bottom. However, some of the older GoPro batteries for the Hero 10 Black, the Hero 9 Black, will also work with the Hero 11 Black. And you'll know this style of battery will be compatible with your Hero 11 Black if it has a blue top and a blue bottom. You only want to use batteries designed for Hero 9, 10, or 11 Black. But ideally, if you are going to be purchasing extra batteries, I highly recommend picking up the Enduro battery. It is just a much better performing battery. So at this point, we need to charge our batteries up, and I highly recommend charging it up before you power on the GoPro for the very first time, because there is some firmware we need to install, and we need to have a full charge on the battery. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that coming up here. Now there's a couple different ways to charge the battery. I'm going to show you both methods. The first is charging it in camera. So what we're going to do is install the battery. Just take a look inside and you'll be able to line things up. But basically the GoPro logo faces the lens. At this point, you're going to want to take the charging cable that came with your GoPro. Now, if you have other cables laying around, they're all pretty well compatible, so it doesn't have to be a specific GoPro brand. The other thing I need to mention is that GoPro does not include a charging block in the box, so you will have to use one that you have laying around the house, or you may have to purchase one. But most chargers will work. For example, here's an old charger from the old iPhone series. It has a USB-A connector. You can use this or any other USB-A charger that you have kicking around. Ideally, however, GoPros can support fast charging by USB-C. If that's the case, you will need to provide your own cable because the GoPro doesn't provide a USB-C to USB-C cable in the box. But most likely many of us already have them laying around. If you have an Android phone that has a USB-C charger, you can use that to charge up the GoPro. This charger here is by Anker. It's the Nano 2. It's a 45 watt charger. I really like it because it's nice and small and compact. The plug part folds in and it's not too expensive. So now to charge, we're just going to plug one end into the power and then the other end, the USB-C end, into the USB-C port on the GoPro. And right away, once we plug it in, you're going to notice a red light turn on there and on the front. When the GoPro is done charging, that red light will go out. Now, for some reason, sometimes that red light doesn't go out. You may have this plugged in for a couple hours and you know it's fully charged, but that red light stays on. If that's the case, you can just go ahead and safely unplug it. Now, the second way to charge your GoPro is by using an external charger. And this is my preferred method and it's what I usually recommend. And the reason being, if you use your GoPro to charge your batteries, it makes the camera unusable. If you're on holidays and your battery's dead, you have to stop filming so you can charge your batteries. However, with an external charger, you can continue to use your GoPro while you're charging up your spares. And they're really simple to use. You just insert your batteries. And then again, you take the USB-C cable and plug it into the USB-C port on the side. You'll notice here that these lights will light up. And I believe on this particular model, those turn green when it's fully charged. And at any time, you can pull one of the batteries out if you need it. The other one will continue to charge. This one here is the official GoPro charger. It's a little pricey. You can get third-party chargers on Amazon that do come in at a fraction of the cost. So that all boils down to personal preference. Now you can also charge your GoPro with a power bank. You can plug a power bank directly into the GoPro or even into the dual charger. And that makes it very convenient when you need to charge on the go. In addition, you can actually power your GoPro from a power bank. So if you have to do a long extended time lapse or extended recording, you can plug in your GoPro while you're recording and it will continue to keep it powered. So now that we've got our GoPro charged up, we got all the batteries charged, we need to insert some memory. For the most part, when you purchase a GoPro, it does not come with a memory card. Now there are some exceptions to that. Sometimes GoPro will run a promotion where they'll include a memory card. And again, some third-party sellers will include one for free. But as a rule of thumb, they generally do not come with one. Now, if you are in the market to purchase one, there are many different compatible brands that will work with your GoPro. My favorite brand is SanDisk, and I like to use their Extreme Pro. It's just a really good fast card, and I've never really had any problems with them. I use these in all my devices, drones, GoPros, and other different types of cameras. I like to use the 128 gigabyte size, but of course you can use smaller, or you can even use bigger. And it's a good idea to have a spare memory card as well. Due to the high resolutions that GoPros can capture, you'll be very surprised at how quickly one can fill up. And if you're taking your GoPro on holidays, you don't want to be stuck with no memory because you filled your card up. It's just a good idea to always have a spare with you. And to insert our memory, we're just going to open up the battery door. Installing the memory can be a little fidgety. Some people have better luck taking the battery out first. So again, that's all personal preference. Basically, what you want to do is have the graphics side facing the battery, and then just insert it into the slot. Use your fingernail or something just to push it down until it clicks. And again, to remove it, you're going to do the exact same thing. Just push down on it, and it should pop right up. So at this point, we're basically ready to go. We've got our memory inserted. We've got the GoPro charged up. So now we're going to power it on for the very first time. And as mentioned, there is some firmware we need to install before we can even use it. Now, there's a couple different ways to install firmware. Now, the easiest way to do it is by installing the GoPro Quick app. You can see I have it installed down in the bottom left-hand side there. If you have an iOS device, you can go to the App Store and just search for GoPro Quick. If you have an Android device, you just go to the Google Play Store and search for GoPro Quick again. Now, because my camera is already a couple weeks old, I've already gone ahead and done that. So I'm going to play you a clip here that I recorded while I was updating my firmware, just so you can follow along. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and power it on and connect it to the GoPro app so we can update the firmware. So we'll just do a quick single press on the power button. So it's asking us the language here. It's already selected to English, so I'll hit the check mark. It says legal stuff, and we'll agree to that. We'll turn GPS on because that does come in quite handy. Now at this point you can see there it's telling us to install the Quick app to finish the setup. It also says to make sure you leave your camera powered on. So I've already got the Quick installed, so we'll go ahead and we'll launch it. We're going to click on the GoPro icon down the bottom right hand corner. And then at the top there we're going to click Add New Camera. And you can see there it's already found it. It says we found your new GoPro, and we'll select Connect to Camera. We'll click on the Pair button. It's going to ask us to name the camera there, so I'm just going to leave it as Hero 11 Black. It's now going to ask us to connect to the Wi-Fi of the camera, and it lists there that we do have an update, so we'll hit Continue. We'll accept the terms, and right now you can see it's transferring over the update to the camera. So at this point, we'll just sit and wait until it gives confirmation that it's done. So as you can see there, we got confirmation that the update has been installed successfully. Now at this point, you don't need your phone anymore. So as you can see, that was a fairly easy procedure. Now there's a few things I just want to mention before we continue here. When it comes to the Quick app, you don't need to use it in order to use your GoPro. It is a handy app. You can use it for many things, such as using it as a remote for your GoPro. When you're lining up shots, you can use it as a preview, and it's just a really good way to manage your media. It allows you to transfer content from your GoPro over to your smartphone or tablet. It gives you some basic editing tools for the clips. It allows you to share it to social media. And of course, it has a feature where it can do auto editing for you. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. I'm going to do a demonstration of that in an upcoming video. So if you are interested in that, make sure you're subscribed to my channel. Once we were done, it left the GoPro in what's called easy mode. That's something new this year GoPro has added. They've added an easy mode and a pro mode. And it's basically just like it sounds. Easy mode makes using the camera very easy, but you don't have access to a lot of the settings. And for a lot of people, that's just fine. It gives you all the basic things that most people want to do with a GoPro. The Pro mode allows you to go in and dial in your own settings, but it can get very complex. And we are going to take a look at both modes here coming up. So let's start in easy mode. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the menu system and how to use it. Let's take a look at the interface here, and I'll kind of go over what everything is. First off, at the top right hand side, we have our battery meter. You can see I have 97% left in this GoPro. And beside that, we have a graphical representation of it as well. And at the top in the middle, it shows us what mode we're currently in. You can see there's a picture of a video camera. So that's signifying we're in video mode. So if we were to use the capture button at the top, the shutter button, we would start to record video. And as you can see, we have a dot on either side of that, and that's just showing we have a mode on either side. And we'll take a closer look at that here in a minute. On the very left-hand side, you can see we have a picture of a memory card, and it says right beside that 3 hours and 35 minutes. So that's telling us that due to the space on the card, we can record for 3 hours and 35 minutes based on the settings we're using. That'll change as we change settings. Below that, we have our digital lenses. Right now you can see there's a W in there, and that will change depending on what field of view we set. Now we are going to take a closer look at digital lenses here coming up in a minute. Beside that, it shows us our video settings. It's telling us that we're in video mode at 1x speed. And right beside that, we have a 1x. And that means we're filming at 1x speed, basically real time. If you want to film in slow motion, we can click on that. And as you can see, we get the slider. And from there, we can adjust the speed. We can put it to 2x slow motion. We can put it to 4x slow motion. Or we can go to 8x ultra slow motion. And I don't know if you can see that on the screen, but as we change it, it also adjusts our frame rates and resolutions. For the most part, you're either going to be filming in 1x or 2x slow motion. Now that 2x slow motion can be a little tricky because even though you're filming in 2x slow motion, it can play back at regular speed or in 2x slow motion. So as mentioned, we are in video mode now. And if you want to capture video, all you have to do is press the shutter button. And as you can see there, it starts recording. And again, to stop recording, we just press the shutter button. Now there are a couple other different ways to capture with a GoPro, and we're going to talk a little bit about that coming up here in a bit. So that was capturing video, but we can also take photos with our GoPro and we can record time lapses. To do that, we have to change the mode. And there's two different ways to do it. First of all, we can take the screen and swipe on it. You can see if I swipe from the right to the left, that changed us into photo mode. And vice versa, I can go back. We can put it back into video mode, or we can go over to time-lapse mode. Additionally, we can also use the mode button. You can see as I press it, again, it'll cycle us through the different modes. So let's take a look at photo mode here. Again, this is still easy mode. You can see the icons are similar up at the top, but some of the buttons around it has changed. First of all, you'll notice that now instead of it telling us how much video we can record, it's telling us that we can take 999 plus photos with the amount of storage that's left on the memory card. Underneath that, we have a picture of a moon, an icon of a moon. If we click on that, that's going to put it into night photo mode. So that allows you to take pictures at night or in really dark locations. Basically, it's going to open up the shutter speed so it records the photo longer. But it's very important if you're going to be taking night photos, make sure you have your GoPro mounted stationary. Have it on a tripod or some other type of mount. If you try to hold it handheld, the camera's going to move a little bit and the image is going to look really blurry. And to put it back to normal mode, we just touch it again. Below that, again, we have our digital lenses. And again, we'll take a look at that here coming up. At the bottom there, it says photo, and underneath that, it says super photo. So that's really the only option when we're in easy mode is to take super photo. It's kind of like HDR. It just makes a really nice photo. It does all the processing for you. When we're in advanced mode, you do have a few other options when it comes to taking photos. And lastly, over here in the bottom right-hand side, we have a timer icon. So we can actually set a delay timer, and that works well if you're trying to do group shots or selfies. We can click on that, and you can see here we can set a 3-second delay or a 10-second delay. Let's set it to 3 seconds, and we'll just do a demonstration of that. You can see when I hit the shutter button, we're going to get a countdown on the screen, and then it's going to take the photo. And same thing, you'll also get that same countdown on the front screen, and that's very beneficial when you're taking a selfie. And of course you can have 0 delay, and then when you hit the shutter button, it just takes a photo right away. So lastly, let's go check out the time-lapse mode. Again, we'll swipe over until we get there. Now when we go over to time-lapse mode, in easy mode, it only allows us to create one type of time-lapse, and that is a time warp video, as GoPro calls it. Basically, in other cameras, they call that hyperlapse. That's where you're walking with the camera and everything's moving really fast, but it's still nice and stable. Again, if we were in advanced mode, we have more options for time lapses, such as night lapses, driving lapses, and different things like that. And it's as simple as pressing the record button, and then go and do your walk. Now at any given time while you're recording your hyperlapse, you can hit this button down here at the bottom, and that's going to put it into real-time speed. So if you're walking along and something interesting you want to film is there, you can start filming in real time, and it kind of gives you that speed ramping effect. Film what you want to film, and then you can stop it and continue with your hyperlapse. And then of course when you're done recording your hyperlapse, you just hit the shutter button and it will stop. So lastly here, let's take a look at our digital lenses. Basically, it's just like it sounds, like a regular camera, how you can change lenses to change the look. You can do so on your GoPro as well, but they're just digital. And mainly it's to do with your field of view, how much of the scenery you can fit into the view. Now, it's also important to note with digital lenses, not every digital lens is available in every mode. But let's go in and we'll take a quick look here. So by default, the most common that people film in is wide. It's kind of a nice mix of a nice wide field of view so you can fit a lot of the scenery in, but it's not too distorted. There's a little bit of distortion, but not too much. If you want to fit even more information, you can go up to super view. Again, that's going to give you a very wide field of view, but you're going to start introducing quite a bit of distortion. And then we can even go wider with Hyperview. That's actually a new digital lens that GoPro added this year. And again, it's going to add a lot of distortion, but you're going to get an extremely wide field of view. A lot of the distortion is going to be along the sides of the GoPro. Now, the reason why you would want some of these really extreme field of views when you're using a GoPro, it allows you to fit a lot in the screen. And especially if you're doing any kind of selfie stuff where you're filming yourself, you might have this on an extension pole, you're riding a bike, you want to film yourself. A wide field of view will allow to get you and your whole bike in the shot. If we put it down to something like wide, it's still going to give you a decent amount of field of view, but a lot will be cut out. Now the next one here is linear, and basically what that does, it's going to crop in a little bit, but it's going to get rid of most of the distortion. So if you just want a traditional look of a traditional camera, ideally you want to film in linear. But again, the crop is going to be fairly tight, so you're not going to get as good of field of view. But for sightseeing and vacations, that's probably one of the modes you want to film in because there's not going to be very much distortion at all. Now lastly, what we can do is we can go down to linear plus horizon lock. Basically, that's the same as linear, but what that's going to do is lock the horizon so it always stays perfectly level no matter which way you have the GoPro. And that can come in really handy in a lot of scenarios. And I'm just going to show you a demonstration here. You can see on the left-hand side, I'm rotating my GoPro around like this. But if you look at the video it captured, it stays perfectly level. So as you can see, it's really great for stabilization. Doesn't matter how much the camera's moving. Your horizon's always going to be perfect level. Again, it's going to have a very tight crop, so it's not ideal for every scenario. And at the end of the day, sometimes you do want movement. Like for example, if you mount this on a chest mount and you're riding a mountain bike down a path, you sometimes want that movement back and forth. That just makes the video a little bit more engaging and portrays the feel of being there. So it all boils down to personal preference, and you just have to try things out to find what you think looks best. So that's basically easy mode. As you can see, it's very easy to use, very simple. You're not going to get bogged down with a whole bunch of complicated menus. But for some people, that's what you're going to want, because you want to be able to fine tune things to your liking. So what we have to do is put it into Pro mode. And to do that, we have to go into our settings. To access our settings, we swipe down from the top. But before we get into that, I may as well do a quick rundown of the settings menu. The first thing you'll notice when we go into our settings is we get these shortcuts here for common things that people need to change. The first one we have is our voice commands. We can turn that on and off, and again, we'll get into that here coming up. We can silence the GoPro, and that way we don't get any beeping when we stop and start recording. The next beside that little picture of a rabbit, that's our quick capture, and we're going to talk about that coming up here in a second. We can lock the screen, and that prevents us from accidentally touching and changing settings when we don't mean to. We can change the behavior of the front screen. We can turn it right off. We can have it display only text, but no image. We can have it display a widescreen image, proper aspect ratio in which we're filming, or we can give it a more zoomed in look. You're not going to see exactly how your shot is framed, but it's going to be more zoomed in and might be a little bit easier to see what you're filming. So again, that all boils down to personal preference. Below that, we can lock the orientation of the GoPro so the video doesn't flip. And right beside that, we can enable the max lens mod. The max lens mod is an accessory that is optional, and I made a video about it about a week ago, so you might want to go in and check that out if you want to learn more about the max lens mod. Now, to get deeper into the settings, what we can do is slide from the right over to the left-hand side. And this is where we actually change it from easy mode to pro mode. You can see if I go to the bottom here, right now it's set to easy controls. We slide it up. That will now enable all the pro settings. The other thing we can do here is battery management. If we click on that, you can see we have highest quality video mode, or we can slide it down, and that's going to allow us to extend our battery. Again, that's kind of personal preference. You'll have to kind of play around with them. Basically, in extended battery mode, it doesn't allow you to film in certain resolutions to extend the life of your battery. Beside that, we have our preferences, and that allows us to dive a little bit deeper into some of the settings. I'm not going to go through all of it, but I do highly recommend going through it and seeing what everything does. One thing I will show you here, though, if we go down to the bottom, we see reset. If we click on that, this is where we can format the SD card. If you want to delete everything at once, say you've already transferred it over to your computer and you just want to wipe the memory card, you would just hit Format SD card. But just keep in mind that we'll delete everything, so make sure you have all the stuff transferred you want before you do a format. You can also reset your presets, and we'll talk a little bit about that here coming up. But you can also do a factory reset. If you've really messed things up or you're having problems, maybe your camera's freezing up on you, try doing a factory reset. That'll put everything back to the way it was. So as you can see, we did switch the camera into Pro mode. So let's take a quick look around it and see what we can do differently in Pro mode. Now, I'm not going to go into every setting because there is a lot there. I'm trying to keep this basic for new users. I will be making more advanced tutorials coming up, so again, make sure you're subscribed. Pro mode is very similar to the easy mode that we already looked at, except we can dive in a little bit deeper, change settings, resolutions. We can set manual camera settings like shutter speed, white balance, ISO. So again, that's not going to be for everybody. The modes work the same. We still have video mode, photo mode, and time-lapse mode, but each one of those modes have different sub-modes. For example, in time-lapse mode, we can change the type of time-lapse we're going to capture. In video mode here, we can change the type of video mode. And to access some of those sub-modes, what we're going to do is press that pill button at the bottom there. You can see that's going to bring up all different types of filming modes because we're in video mode. GoPro has already included some pre-made ones there, common ones that people will use. And for each one of those, we can even dive in deeper. We can press that pencil icon, and as you can see there, it shows us all the settings that we're currently at. We have Pro Tune settings. This is where we can set all the manual settings, and we can adjust some of the attributes. The field of view, the level of stabilization, and the resolution and frame rates. On top of that, we can actually create our own modes as well. If we click on that button at the top left-hand side, you can see the first thing it does is allow us to create any custom modes we've made. As you can see there, I've made one called Epic, but we can click on that X, and that allows us to delete it. We can't delete the ones that GoPro has made for us, but we can reset them. As you can see, that little icon appears there at the right hand side. Because I have adjusted that one, added some of my own settings, but if we want to go back to default, we can just click that button and that's going to restore it back to what GoPro originally had set. But what we can do here, we can also create our own manual setting. So we can hit that plus icon. It asks us what type of video we want to record, either looping or video. We can hit the check mark. We can then go in and set all the attributes that we want. Again, we'll hit the check mark. We can set a custom icon for it. So we have a new one now called mounted. And if we click on that, you can see it's listed there at the top. Again, if you want to delete it, click that button at the top there and then hit the red X. And we can do that for every type of filming mode, whether we're in photo mode or in time-lapse mode. Let's go over to photo mode and we'll take a look there. Again, around it, you can see we have all the different icons for adjustments, but we can click on that pill button at the bottom. And that's going to list all the different types of photo modes that are currently available. By default, we have photo, burst, night photo, and again, we can go in and adjust each one. And again, if we go over to time lapse here, again, we can click on time warp where it says time warp, that pill button. And there it's going to list all the different types of time lapses we can create. And there's actually quite a few here. There's a few new ones as well. We can create a time warp, a star trail, light painting, vehicle lights, a regular time lapse, or a night lapse. I'm not going to get into all these different time lapses. However, I do plan on making more in-depth videos going over each one of these coming up here in the near future. So again, make sure you're subscribed if that's something you're interested in. So that's basically advanced mode. Other than that, it works the same as easy mode. So as I mentioned earlier on, there's actually 3 different ways in which we can capture with a GoPro. The first we've already demonstrated just by using the shutter button. That's going to stop and start recording. The second way is actually using our voice. The GoPro is capable of voice command. Now it's disabled by default, you do have to turn it on. And to turn it on, we just swipe down from the top and make sure we toggle on voice command. Now the first time you turn it on, it's just going to ask you to confirm your language. But any other time you turn it on and off after that, it won't ask you. Now for a list of voice commands, we can go into the settings to look at them. Again, we'll swipe over to the right hand side. We'll click on preferences. We'll scroll down until we see voice control. Here again, we can also turn it on and off, set our language. But at the bottom there it says commands. We can click on that and it's going to give us a list of commands we can say to the GoPro. I'll just do a quick demonstration here for you. So what we'll do, we'll start with recording video. So you can say GoPro start recording. You can see there the GoPro is going to start recording video. And then we can say GoPro stop recording. And there it's going to stop. We can take photos and we can also start time lapses. But the interesting thing is there we don't actually have to change modes physically. So for example, as you can see, I am in video mode there, as shown by that video camera at the top of the screen. But I can still say, GoPro, take a photo. As you can see there, it switched over to photo mode and then took the photo. If we had a timer enabled, it would use that timer before it took the photo. And now we're in photo mode, but I can still say, GoPro, start recording. You can see there, it switched into video mode and started recording video. GoPro, stop recording. But if we want, we can manually tell it to change modes. GoPro, photo mode. And as you can see there, it just switched into photo mode, but it didn't take any photos. We can also turn our GoPro off. GoPro, turn off. So voice command can be very handy in some scenarios, but it can be kind of a pain in others. The thing is, when you have voice command enabled, other people can control your GoPro, and sometimes it will pick up commands that you haven't given it. You might have a TV playing in the background or somebody's talking, and for some reason it thinks it hears a command and it will start recording or take a photo when you don't mean it to. So for myself, I usually leave it off and I only turn it on when I know I do want to use it. But it is great for taking selfies. If you have it on an extension pole, you don't have to keep bringing the camera back in to hit the shutter button every time. Now the next way to record is something called quick capture. And again, you have to make sure that's turned on, and we do so by swiping down from the top. And you can see that picture of the rabbit. Right now it is turned on. We can disable it or turn it on. And I'll kind of demonstrate what quick capture is here. I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera off. Normally to record on the GoPro, we would power it on, set our settings, and then hit the record button. The problem with that is sometimes something might be happening in front of us quickly that we may miss if we go through all those steps. So GoPro has something called quick capture, When the GoPro is completely powered off, we can hit the record button. You're going to see the GoPro starts recording right away. I just powered on quickly, a little quicker than normal, and it just started recording. Then when we hit the shutter button again to stop recording, the GoPro is just going to stop recording and power off. So that definitely can come in handy in some scenarios. So now let's take a look at how to preview our media once we've captured it. To preview stuff that we've filmed or photos we've taken, what we do is swipe down from the bottom of the screen up. And what that's going to do is show us our latest video or photo that we've captured. If we want to see the rest of our content, we click that icon at the top left-hand side. And as you can see, it's going to show us a grid view of our media. We can click on an item, and it's going to start to play. We can click this bottom here at the center bottom, and that allows us to scrub through the video. We can add a marker, and adding a marker makes it easier for auto editing and when you're going to be editing later on. You can add markers to all the interesting spots, and that way when you're editing or you're using the quick app for an auto edit, it knows where the interesting spots are. We can adjust the volume. You can see right now it's muted, but if we click on that, that'll put it at full volume. If we click it again, it'll go to half volume, and then again the third click will mute it again. At the top right hand side, we can click that eye for information, and it's going to show us everything about that video. All the settings that were used, the stabilization, what lens we were filming in. So that can come in handy too if you're curious about how you film something. And of course you can see there at the bottom left hand side we can delete the video or photo. Once you're viewing media, if you don't want to go back to the grid view every time but you want to go to the next video or photo, we can just swipe on it and it's going to take us to the next one. To get out of previewing media, we just swipe down from the top and that'll take us back to live view. Now, when it comes to transferring media from your GoPro to your smartphone or tablet or computer, there are several different ways to do it, and I am going to make a separate video about that coming up here shortly. So again, if that is something you're interested in, make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you don't miss it. So that is the basic functionality of the GoPro Hero 11 Black. It's very easy to use, and once you get onto it, you're going to really enjoy it. They are a lot of fun to capture with, and you don't have to worry too much about it. They're a nice durable camera. Now before I go here, I do want to go over some essential accessories that I think every new GoPro user should consider. The first two items are handles. I've already shown you these earlier in the video. This is a floating hand grip, and when your GoPro is mounted on it and you accidentally drop your GoPro in water, this will keep it afloat. It has a nice bright orange end on it so you can see it easily in the water. It has a wrist strap, so again, you don't have to worry about dropping it accidentally. And it's got a nice foam grip here so it doesn't get slippery in the water. But a handle like this is good for everyday use as well, whether you're filming in water or not. Just for the fact that it does have that nice wrist strap, it's a nice comfortable handle to hold. So if you're going to be filming on something like a roller coaster, you don't want to accidentally drop it. Something like this is very beneficial. The other type of handle that I like to use is called the Max Grip. This was actually launched alongside the GoPro Max, but it works well with the Hero 11 just as a nice hand grip. It's also an extension pole if you need it, and it also folds out into a tripod if you want to take some stationary shots or film a time lapse. It's really a nice all-in-one device. As mentioned earlier, I do recommend getting some type of external charger. This is the official GoPro brand, but there are many third-party ones available on Amazon, and for the most part, they all work very well. If you're going to be using your GoPro for vlogging, it's a really good idea to pick up the media mod. Basically, the GoPro just slides into it. And what this does, it's supposed to give you better audio, but more importantly, what this does is allow you to connect an external microphone. You can see back here we have a microphone jack, and we also have a USB-C pass-through port, so you can still feed power into your GoPro when it's installed. We have two cold shoes on it for mounting wireless microphones or a traditional shotgun microphone, or if you want to add other accessories like a light. This is one of those accessories that won't be for everybody depending on how you're going to be using your GoPro, but like I said, if you want really good audio, you're going to be using your GoPro for some vlogging, this is almost an essential must. The next item here is a housing for your GoPro. This serves two purposes. First of all, this will allow your GoPro to go deeper than 33 feet and remain waterproof. As mentioned, your GoPro is waterproof right out of the box. Just like this, you can take this in water down to 33 feet. If you're a scuba diver and you need to go deeper than that, you're going to want to use some kind of external housing. But I also find this important for another reason as well, and that is just adding extra durability to your GoPro. If you're going to be using your GoPro in a manner where it can take some abuse, say, for example, you've got this mounted on a skateboard. You know, skateboards can do some crazy stuff. Your GoPro could get banged around quite a bit. Although the GoPro is built durably, we still have glass screens on the front and the back and the lens. that can be damaged fairly easily, especially if this gets dropped on concrete or rocks. Putting it in something like this housing will protect it. Now this housing may get damaged, you may crack it, you may scratch the lens, but at the end of the day it's a lot cheaper to replace this housing than to replace your whole GoPro. And lastly, this is actually one of my favorite accessories for a GoPro, and I'm going to be making a separate video about it. This is by Tellison, and basically it is a neck mount. Here it is here. Now mind you, I don't have the GoPro mount installed in it right now, but this allows you to hang it around your neck, and it allows you to mount your GoPro on it to give you a nice point of view shot. You can mount it to the side, upside down. Basically this works just like a chest mount, but it's just a little bit easier and more comfortable to wear. There's a button at the back to make it easy to put on and take off. It's very flexible, so it can adjust to different neck shapes and sizes. Has a nice rubber coating on it, so it is very comfortable to wear. This has actually become one of my most used accessories. I use it when I'm riding a bike and I want to get a nice point of view shot. I've created some nice walking hyperlapses with it. And for my YouTube channel, I use it quite a bit when filming B-roll. And just as one last bonus item here, this is a new accessory that GoPro released earlier this year. This is called the Volta, and it is actually a fairly handy device. It's a little bit pricey, so some people may not justify the cost of it. But for me, I use it actually quite a bit. Basically, this is a battery handle for your GoPro. So you can use it just like a traditional handle, but you have the bonus of plugging it into the USB-C port on the GoPro, and that's going to feed power to your GoPro to give you all-day usage. We also have a record shutter button right on the front here. We can switch modes. You can spin your GoPro to different angles depending on what works best for you. It also has a built-in tripod, so if you want to set your GoPro down to film a time lapse or do some stationary recording, you always will have a tripod with you. It's a great little device and it works very well. Well folks, that's my beginner's guide for the GoPro Hero 11 Black. I hope you found this video had value and found it informative. If you did, please consider giving this video a thumbs up. It helps other people discover this video, and it really is truly appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you want to learn more about your GoPro Hero 11 Black, as I will be having many new videos coming over the coming weeks and months. I want to thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.